Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at a watch that represents yesterday's anniversary watch. That's right, it's the 2003 Rolex 16610LV, better known as the Kermit. Now, Rolex has celebrated a host of anniversaries since the new millennium, with most of their most timeless references, the tool watches, the sports watches, your GMTs, your Submariner, your Day Date, your Milgauss, all these classic references debuting during the 1950s. The 2000s were a pretty active period for Rolex anniversaries, and one of the first and most important to arrive was that 2003 50th anniversary of the Rolex Submariner. If Rolex is the most iconic company in the watch industry, the Submariner may be the most iconic Rolex. So that's a pretty impressive stature for any watch. Arguably a household name, the Rolex Submariner has been made famous by military units and James Bond alike. So for 50 years of the Sub, again it debuted in 1953 at the Bezel show, Rolex came up with something that was a little bit out of left field, truth be told, for them, which is color. This distinctive green bezel embodies the use of a color that's a corporate signature for Rolex, but has only occasionally been used on their most important luxury watch references. Green is deeply rooted in the Rolex tradition. There have been green dialed, green accented, even green buildings in the Rolex history, but the green Submariner really struck collectors as a little bit unusual, but because it was unusual, that made it special. Rolex is conservative, they don't make big changes, they don't take daring leaps, so this watch is exceptional for that reason alone. The other reason is because it worked so well. The combination of the steel tones with the black dial and the green color makes this watch completely unique. Now keep in mind, in 2010, another green Submariner came out. That was the 6-digit reference, so-called Hulk. That watch is very different from this one, and it reads completely different in person. For one thing, it has a much more massive case, and for another, it's a green dial and a green bezel. So this watch, produced between 2003 and basically 2009, is a special episode in Rolex history, and it's destined to be a collectible. Arguably, it already is. But there are a couple of interesting facets that set it apart. For one thing, there's that relatively short production run. And then for another, there's the fact that in addition to the green bezel, the watch has a very different dial arrangement than a conventional 5-digit reference Submariner. You'll note that even at an arm's length, where I'm holding it from the camera, you can see the indexes incredibly well. That's not common to a 5-digit reference sub, because these larger indexes are characteristic of the much later subs, the current ones that we buy now, as well as the Yacht-Masters, which debuted this large index look in the early 1990s. So if you look at a Submariner that is not the LV bezel from this time, that is not the Kermit, it will not have this legibility. It will not have this bold dial with the black lacquer and the huge indexes. So even beyond the bezel, Rolex made this watch more than just a little bit special. And remember, the Submariner by itself is special. It has a heritage and a history that's second to none. It's the watch that's welcome anywhere. I like to say the boardroom and the boardwalk for most of the most versatile sports watches, but the truth is, the Submariner is welcome anywhere from the auction house to your house. The bottom line is, this watch has transcended its origins as a tool for hardcore divers and its later use as standard issue in military units, including the British Royal Engineers, the Royal Marines, I think the Iranian Navy had it, the South Africans used it, James Bond, of course, from Roger Moore to Sean Connery to Timothy Dalton. They've pretty much, prior to Pierce Brosnan, they all wore Rolex, and most of the time it was the Rolex Submariner. So this watch really is an article of pop culture, and even though it originates from Switzerland, I gotta think with all of its media appearances, it's even become a little bit of Americana. So almost everyone knows the look. The problem is the standard sub has been ripped off to death. If you go into a mall, you will see so many, quote, Submariners being sold in kiosks right in the center of the mall, you know, the kind that also has like iPhone covers. And I don't want to say it dilutes the appeal of the sub, because to those who truly know and respect watches, there is no substitute, but it does kind of force the standard issue black bezel, black dial Submariner into the background. It kind of gets lost in the mass. You start playing Where's Waldo, and maybe you feel like you see your watch on every street corner. It's not that way with the Kermit. This LV bezel which is different from the new ceramic because this one is metallic. It really pops in the light. You can see that little gleam when the light hits it. That's something it has that the new watch, the Hulk, does not have. It has that luminescence and that radiance. Again, a very special quality, especially in conjunction with the lacquered bezel, which has a much brighter gloss to it than the new sunburst metallic green on the Hulk. This is a special model, and it represents an important period in time for Rolex, a period when Rolex was finally beginning to bin the old, hollow end links. It was moving away from outsourced movements. It was buying up the rest of the A.E. Agler works out in BN and taking everything in-house. It was really bracing itself for its assumed role as the standard bearer for the luxury watch industry. And this watch wasn't just to commemorate the 50 years of the Submariner. In a lot of ways, this watch was sort of Rolex's coming out party, accepting its role as the flagship brand of Swiss watchmaking. Now, not just a maker of tool watches, but a maker of icons, and luxury icons at that. I feel like the 50th anniversary Sub, which predated all of the big six-digit reference tool watches that we have today, the ceramic bezels, the parachrom hairsprings, the new refinements and high complications like the Yacht-Master 2 and the Sky Dweller. I really feel that when we look back, we'll say that this watch was the turning point where it started. And you know what? It still looks like $1 million today. This example, available from watchyouwant.com, can be seen in high resolution on our website, watchyouwant.com. Again, detailed photos of the watch in its entire boxed set. This is a 100% complete boxed set. We have everything that originally came with this watch down to the original chronometer hang tag. I'm confident that if you're into the Submariner but you want something just a little bit different, take a look at this Rolex 16610LV Kermit. I'm confident it will be the watch you want.